Good evening. Tonight I want to review a book on salt that I recently read, and I really like it. It's by Dr. Brownstein. It's called Salt Your Way to Health, and I have read other books on salt and their importance in our health as well, and I will be doing reviews on those sometime in the future. But I wanted to go over this one because it's a nice, easy read, and it just goes through a lot of things. So this is written again by Dr. Brownstein. It's called Salt Your Way to Health. This is like the second edition, I think. I do recommend, if you're going to purchase any of Dr. Brownstein's books, getting them straight from his website, because you're going to get a much better price on the most up-to-date edition, and I wish I would have realized that before I bought this one off of Amazon. I got it used, so I got a decent price, but I still would have much rather paid the $20 from Dr. Brownstein's website and gotten the most updated book, because I think there's a couple more chapters in the newest book, but this one does give a lot of information, and I have a lot of notes that I want to go over with you, and I'm just going to read the back to kind of give you an idea. Salt Your Way to Health. Salt is a vitally important dietary nutrient. This book will show you the remarkable healing ability of unrefined salts, and it includes actual case studies, which I really, really liked. Pretty much in each chapter, he gives at least one or two studies of his patients. The book goes over the difference between unrefined salt and refined salt, the toxicity of refined salt, mineral content in unrefined salt, the fallacy of low salt diets, salt and thyroid disorders, salt and adrenal disorders. And there's actually much more than just that in the book, and eventually I'm going to get the newest version. When you purchase the newest versions on Amazon, they are actually more expensive than just getting them straight from Dr. Brownstein's website. So I will link that website in the show notes or video description, whatever you want to call it. It's a really, really easy read. Like, you don't have to be a science nerd or anything like that to understand. Just to kind of go over, I've got like 6 pages of notes. I'm not going to go through all of them, but some things that I found really interesting is he goes through the history of salt, which are things that, like, I didn't realize. I know salt is extremely important, and I'm always talking about it. In ancient times, salt was as valued as gold. Like, I had no clue about that. Salt bars were used as currency in Ethiopia over 1,000 years ago. In ancient Rome, soldiers were paid in salarium argentums, which is and I know I didn't pronounce that right, so whatever, but that's actually the English word salary. That's where we got that. Hippocrates said in 450 BC he recommended salt for healing infections, clearing congestion, and also diseases of the spleen. Paracelsus, somewhere around the late 1400 AD to early 1500, he said the human must have salt. He cannot be without salt. Where there is no salt, nothing will remain, but everything will tend to rot. Another thing that I didn't realize was during the Civil War, the North actually limited the availability of salt to the South, and they really wore them down. They wore the South down because they couldn't get the salt, so then they couldn't preserve their food, and their health really started declining. It was just really interesting. So salt in its natural form is what's called unrefined salt. So it's just mined and then packaged, essentially. I mean, it might be ground up into finer salt, but it has all of its minerals and everything from the earth. So yes, you're going to find minerals that are in the earth when you have things like Celtic sea salt or pink Himalayan sea salt or Redmond's real salt, anything that's actually mined, but it has all the minerals. Refined salt is where they take the salt and they put it through all these processes that remove everything except for sodium chloride. And refined salt uses chemicals such as sulfuric acid or chlorine to strip the minerals, and then they sell the minerals for more profit. And then refined salt also may contain sodium ferrocyanide, ammonium citrate, and aluminum silicate as anti-caking agents. Refined salt is essentially a lifeless product. So unrefined salt has many healthy minerals, and it's really good for your health. So in the book, he breaks down each chapter, kind of goes through a different section of where it falls for the health, and each chapter builds on the previous chapter. So he goes over pH and food and pH, and how being certain ways of eating or certain foods can make you more acidic, which can lead to chronic illness. So chronic illnesses in acidic conditions are things like cancer cells can proliferate in acidic conditions, as well as chronic infections. So one of the things is, then the next section he goes through is problems with low salt diets. Are they really helpful? And what's been found actually in studies is, for most people, low salt diets don't lower blood pressure. In all the studies that have been done on blood pressure and salt, they gave loads of refined salt and then reduced that. So they never used unrefined salt in any of the studies. So for most people, lowering salt doesn't lower blood pressure. It might by a teeny tiny bit, but the health outcomes, the negative health outcomes from that aren't worth the trade-off, because it's not like you're drastically lowering it. He actually goes through and shows through studies how having adequate unrefined salt will help lower blood pressure. So low salt diets have negative consequences in the body. Now, he does go through, if you are in renal failure, obviously you want to always check with your doctor before you would make any sort of dietary changes. Most people are not in renal failure. Low salt diets and cholesterol. So doctors are always focus on the numbers of cholesterol and LDL and this and that. There's actually studies that show that low salt diets have been shown to cause significant increase in total cholesterol and LDL. Hormones are affected by low salt diets. Low salt diets cause kidneys to retain more sodium, as well as increasing insulin production. And if you know anything about insulin production, insulin is the hormone that helps keep your blood sugar regulated. It is a hormone, and when it's chronically high or high too often, you end up with, and then blood sugar is high and you become insulin resistant, you end up with type 2 diabetes. So perhaps blood sugar and insulin could be helped to be controlled if we just used unrefined salt and we didn't keep it minimized. Nothing that I'm talking about here is any sort of medical advice. I'm just going over what is in the book. You get the book, you read it, you apply it to your life as you feel is fit. I'm just trying to hit the really interesting things that I just felt that really popped out to me. Low salt diet actually can lead to toxicity in the body because salt, unrefined salt, can actually help detoxify the body. And toxins such as bromide, which if you soak in hot tubs or anything like that, it's actually in a lot of medications, those build up and they compete with iodine, and they're toxic to our body. And so salt actually helps like flush that out. Bromide is actually a toxic element that's associated with many mental illnesses, including schizophrenia, paranoia, hallucinations. Again, the hypertension, so high blood pressure and salt, those studies showing lower blood pressure were always done with refined salt, never with unrefined salt. This part in the book has to do with the body and salt and water and how it all plays in together. So water and salt, they're always together. The body is approximately 70% water and the brain contains 80% water. So I've always known this. If I ever have a client or anyone that starts getting a headache, 9 times out of 10, it's from dehydration. And it can be dehydration because maybe they had too much coffee or too much tea and then not enough water, or they drink a lot of water, but they're not, so then they're throwing their electrolytes out of balance and they don't have enough sodium. And so that can actually cause that headache. And I will give people a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, like Redmond's salt, and they take that, and their headache goes away within like 10 minutes. It's because they're hydrating their brain. And with the brain being so much water, it needs those electrolytes. And sodium is the biggest electrolyte. So you've got sodium, potassium, and magnesium, but sodium is the biggest, and then potassium and magnesium fall under that. An adult body has 250 grams of salt in it. That's a lot of salt. We typically need between 3 to 6 grams of sodium a day, depending on, if you're sweating or exercising or anything like that. And 1 teaspoon of salt has about 2,200 milligrams, or 2.2-ish grams of sodium. And an adult body has 250 grams of sodium. So you can see how, in the morning, you're often dehydrated in the morning, so you need to hydrate with salt or electrolytes. If you're out working and like in heat, or you're exercising, and then you try drinking just water, that's not going to rehydrate you, and very often you'll feel worse than if you were to just take salt in your water. And again, I'm always talking about unrefined salt. Get rid of that Morton's umbrella blue cartoned crap. That's not salt. That's not anything healthy for you. Get rid of it. Hi, I hope you're enjoying this video. If you are, please be sure to like and share. Also, make sure that you're subscribed to my channel and that you hit that notification bell so that anytime I upload a video or have a new recipe, you'll be notified. You can be one of the first to watch. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the video. Water and salt are needed for metabolism, to detox our cells, to transport nutrients. They're needed for hormones and nervous system and immune system. This is really interesting. I want to read you this page on seizure disorders. And I never put two and two together, but it makes sense with sodium and headaches. This made a lot of sense because sodium or salt and the nervous system. So the nervous system transmits impulses via electricity through the body. A clear example of this is when you hit your funny bone on your elbow and you feel shooting impulse down your hand. That shooting impulse is a nerve, it's the ulnar, that is transmitting the signal down the pathway to the hand. These impulses are mediated by sodium ions. Sodium regulates the electrical charges throughout the body. If sodium levels are too low or too high, there will be abnormal electrical signals. The brain is very sensitive to sodium changes. In fact, one symptom of abnormal sodium levels can be the onset of a seizure disorder. Seizure disorders are increasingly common today. Although anti-seizure medications can be extremely helpful at controlling the frequency and severity of a seizure disorder, these medications do not treat the underlying cause of the illness. The brain relies on sodium and water to transmit nerve impulses. Other minerals are also involved in nerve conduction, including magnesium, calcium, and potassium. Without adequate amounts of all of these substances, it is impossible for the brain to function normally. As previously mentioned, sodium can be obtained from salt. However, refined salt, although supplying sodium and chloride in adequate amounts, is sorely lacking in over 80 minerals. In fact, the use of refined salt will exacerbate a mineral deficit in the body. Mineral imbalances will increase the severity of any chronic disorder, including seizure disorders. I have witnessed many of my patients with seizure disorders significantly improve their condition by eliminating refined salt and adding unrefined salt. Then he goes to talk about a case study, which I'll read. Jerry, 12 years old, suffered from recurrent seizures. He was on 2 anti-seizure medications, which helped to decrease the frequency of his seizures, but did not fully take them away. When I measured Jerry's electrolyte levels, his sodium was low at 138 millimolars. The only salt Jerry received was the refined salt in food. I never salted Jerry's food because I thought it was healthier to go without, his mother claimed. When I increased Jerry's salt intake with unrefined Celtic sea salt, his seizures dramatically improved. He was able to stop 1 seizure medication and decrease a second medication by 50%. As soon as he started to take the Celtic sea salt, his seizures improved, his memory improved, and he became more alert, said his mother. Guys, that's from unrefined salt. Just changing processed food salt and increasing the unrefined salt, which has all those minerals. It's just phenomenal. So never underestimate the power of salt. Again, dehydration, unrefined salt corrects that. Really, I think I read in here, he says, let's see. He talks about like the ratio. I want to say he says, yeah, here. 2 liters of water and a half a teaspoon of an unrefined salt. So that's kind of a good measure. Of course, you can do more if you're, sweating more or have reasons. And that was for someone with migraine. So you might think, well, I salt my food enough. And for some people, that's fine. I have to take additional salt because my blood pressure will actually plummet if I don't. So if you are one of those people where you have chronic headaches or you have seizure disorders or you're constantly sick, you might need to take more salt. If you're always feeling fatigued, take more salt. We know that unrefined salt is detoxifying. If you've ever had a sore throat, gargle with salt. That actually will help clear that out. So low salt diets, they can actually affect adrenal hormones, including cortisol. So if you've got cortisol issues or you're always feeling stressed, or you feel like your adrenals are taxed, or you've ever been told your adrenals are taxed, and there are tests and things that can be done for that, increasing your salt, unrefined salt, could actually help that. And then there's also a connection there with thyroid, because when you have adrenal glands and thyroid are very closely related, and if the adrenal glands are stressed or taxed, that can actually affect the thyroid as well. And so again, sodium can help with that. Detoxing from bromide, all that. And then, so this is just a really great book. And he goes through, he's got a whole chapter on the uses of salt. So the uses of salt, he's got in here adrenal exhaustion, allergic rhinitis, runny nose, cold, asthma, circulation, detoxification, diabetes, dry skin, exercise, fatigue, gastritis, hyponatremia, low sodium levels, insect bites, including bee sting. That one's pretty interesting. He says cover with a warm salt paste and the pain and itching will be lessened. Insomnia, lipids. So if you've got issues with your cholesterol and like changing your diet, say going keto or carnivore or low carb or whatever isn't helping you as much as you and your doctor would like, try sodium. Muscle cramps, for sure. Osteoporosis, phlegm, poison ivy, and then obviously we know as a preservative that's been used for thousands and thousands of years to preserve food. So I really can't recommend this book enough. Get the most updated one. The one thing that I do like, so Dr. Brownstein has 15 books, I think. He could put everything in one big book. But I like that his books are all separated based on topic, because then you can just get one at a time. They're very good. I'm really hoping to meet him one day or interview him. I'm also hoping Dr. Berry will interview him. I put that in as a request. He's really, really smart. I have read his iodine book, which the salt ties in with the iodine, but I like that he keeps the two topics separate, but yet ties them in each book. So his iodine book I'll be reviewing next, and then his thyroid book, I'm finishing that up. It's really, really good. So, and then I have a virus book from him, which I'll be reading and reviewing. But yeah, if you want to know more on how salt can help impact your health for the better, grab yourself Dr. Brownstein's book. The shipping is super fast, because I have ordered a couple of, once I found that he actually sold the books himself right on his website, I just started ordering straight from him, because I'd rather get the most updated one, and I'd rather order it straight from him. And I ordered it, and within like 2 days came faster than my Amazon orders. And for instance, the thyroid book was like $10 more on Amazon than what I paid at Dr. Brownstein's website. And his most recent book, which is a book on treating viruses, including the 2020 virus, Amazon wanted over $40, and I couldn't find it anywhere cheaper. $20. $20 on Dr. Brownstein's website. I couldn't believe it. I was just floored. So, yeah, it's just really good. And I know salt is super good for our health, and that's one of the main things that I tell my clients is get the good salt. I don't care if you use Redmond's or Celtic or, pink. I don't care, just as long as it's a good unrefined salt. I prefer Redmond's, but that's because it's readily available. I can get it in any store, and it's sold here on the U.S. I mean, it's mined here in the U.S. on my continent versus like having to have it shipped from overseas. So if you found this book review helpful, I do hope that you share it and that you get the book yourself, and hopefully you will start salting your way to better health. Thanks, and we'll talk again soon.